Dumebi's vibrant laughter once echoed through the bustling streets, her beauty turning heads wherever she went. Orphaned at a young age, she found solace in her grandmother's love, blossoming into a radiant young woman whose spirit remained unbroken despite life's hardships. When Deji entered her life, Dumebi felt as though the stars had aligned. His charming smile, his sweet words, and promises of a bright future swept her off her feet. The wedding day was a joyous affair, with Dumebi's grandmother shedding tears of happiness for her beloved granddaughter. Deji, a successful banker whose grandmother also lived in the same village, had promised to love and support Dumebi's dreams and education. Deji was a very kind and loving husband to his young wife, and Dumebi was very grateful to Deji. She loved, respected, and adored him. As they settled into married life, Dumebi's dream of continuing education slowly faded into the background. Deji's career in the banking industry demanded more of his time, and with the arrival of their children, Dumebi found herself consumed by the role of a mother and a homemaker. She told herself it was only temporal, clinging to Deji's promises that she would one day return to school and start her life when the children were older. However, their lives took a drastic turn when Deji's career began to flourish. He began to question his choice of a wife. As they climbed the ladder of success, a dark cloud seemed to overshadow their once blissful marriage. He became distant and cold and started treating Dumebi poorly. He began to view Dumebi through a critical lens, comparing her to the polished women in his professional circle, the way they dressed and carried themselves. The once adoring husband now saw his wife as a reminder of his humble beginnings. Deji became ashamed of his wife. He felt she was no longer up to his standard and was no longer beautiful to him. Deji would often insult his wife and call her semi-literate. Dumebi noticed the changes but tried to brush it off. She threw herself into being the perfect wife and mother, hoping to rekindle the love they once shared. But all her efforts seemed to have the opposite effect, only highlighting the growing divide between them. Dumebi, broken, shamed, and battered, bore the pain silently, believing she had no other options. And she had nowhere to return to. Going back to the village was out of the question, as it was going to be very shameful. The first time Deji raised his hand to Dumebi was turned into silence. She couldn't reconcile this angry stranger with the man she had married, who treated her like a queen. And as their abuse escalated, both verbally and physically, Dumebi retreated into herself. The vibrant woman she once was became a shadow of herself, treading carefully to avoid Deji's unpredictable moods. She began walking on eggshells. Deji's encounter with his old classmate Yinka and his wife Fini at the banking conference served as a stark reminder of what he perceived as his own shortcomings in his choice of a life partner. The shame he felt at the thought of introducing Dumebi to a successful peer further poisoned their relationship. After the conference, Yinka and Fini invited Deji and some other colleagues on the family getaway. But Deji was too ashamed to even be seen with Dumebi and wondered how he was going to introduce Dumebi as his wife. Apart from the fact that she had lost her beauty and was now looking unkempt and dirty, he thought he couldn't tell his friend his wife was just a stay-at-home mom who was not even well-read and had not achieved anything from life apart from being married and having children. He decided to give an excuse. He also made up his mind he was no longer interested in the marriage. When Deji met Tito, the young and beautiful nurse, it was as if a switch had been flipped. He saw in her everything he felt Dumebi lacked: education, beauty, sophistication, and ambition. Their affair began as a spark of excitement, but quickly grew into a raging fire that threatened to consume what remained of his marriage. One evening, Deji arrived home late to find Dumebi cooking rice for his dinner. Frustrated by her choice of meal, he erupted in anger, demanding his preferred dish of pounded yam and fresh vegetable soup. Exhausted and unwell, Dumebi explained that she was too tired to make another meal. Enraged, Deji said, "You sit at home all day and do nothing while I make the money. Yes, you can make yourself useful. You are a useless woman. Physically, you are nothing to write home about. Financially, you contribute nothing. I just pity myself for marrying you." He unleashed his fury and violently attacked her, leaving Dumebi hospitalized for days. One of the doctors treating Dumebi told her that she had once experienced what Dumebi is currently experiencing. "You have to live. Believe in yourself." Dumebi, crying, said, "Where do I go? I don't even have a dime." The doctor said, "Start by getting a job, no matter how little it is." She gave Dumebi a number and a little change. Deji eventually managed to offer a hollow apology, but he made sure to twist the blame onto Dumebi. He convinced her that it was a lack of respect and submission that caused his outburst. Powerless and isolated, Dumebi was forced to apologize for her abuse. After some weeks, he told Dumebi he was no longer interested in her and she could relocate back to her grandmother. Dumebi begged, and he promised to reconsider. Finding solace in her misery, Dumebi knew she had to be strong. She desperately sought jobs to sustain herself and slowly regain her independence. Finally, she secured a housekeeping job with the help of the doctor who spoke to her brother. When Dumebi was employed, she saw the house and was surprised that someone could own such a beautiful house. Everything was beautiful. The house manager agreed to pay her weekly wages instead of monthly. This allowed Dumebi to receive timely wages, ensuring she could support herself and plan for a better future. She knew she had to survive, to cater for herself and her children. Dumebi's journey to independence began with small steps. The housekeeping job she secured was more than just a source of income. It was a lifeline to a world beyond the confines of her abusive marriage. Each day brought new challenges, but also small victories as she discovered her strength and resilience. However, fate had a different plan. While working one day, Dumebi felt increasingly weak and exhausted, but did not want to miss out on her weekly payments. Pushing herself beyond her limit, she collapsed from fatigue and stress. When she regained her consciousness, Dumebi found herself lying in one of the rooms on the bed and a nurse attending to her. The house manager looked at her with sympathy. After some minutes, her kind-hearted boss, Mr. Folarin, walked in, concerned about her well-being. With a gentle smile, he questioned why Dumebi continued to work despite her weakened state. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, Dumebi couldn't find the words to explain her situation. Folarin, sensing her distress, explained to Dumebi that the house manager had made a call to her last dialed number, who introduced himself as her husband and said he was in a meeting, but was yet to call back or respond to his messages. Dumebi broke down in tears after hearing this. Mr. Folarin told her he was ready to listen whenever she was ready to talk. She told Mr. Folarin a story, how she got married at an early age and how her husband became hostile to her after the birth of their second child. and the unprintable names he calls her. Folarin was surprised her husband was educated and had a good job, while she worked as a housekeeper. You mean your husband is educated and has a good job, while his wife works as an housekeeper? Why can't he upgrade you or send you back to school? I'm sorry, I find this hard to believe. It doesn't add up. Deji eventually called and explained that he was not even aware Dumebi had a job. He added that he worked as a manager in a prestigious bank and had only married Dumebi out of sympathy. Mr. Folarin came back into the room and apologized for not believing her. He asked what exactly she wanted. Dumebi responded that she needed to complete her education or learn a skill to regain her self-esteem. Mr. Folarin urged her to take a week off to recuperate. Touched by her determination, he surprised Dumebi by doubling her salary. Dumebi was very grateful. She returned home so happy. When she got home, Deji was already home and asked her where she was coming from. She explained to him that she just started a housekeeping job. Deji sneered at her, asking her who gave her the permission to leave the house. He laughed at her and mocked her, saying, "That is all you can ever be, a maid." He said, "I'm only angry you didn't return on time to get the children from school or make dinner for the children. So I had to ask the driver to get food from an eatery, which disturbed my outing." Dumebi was sad. She felt so lonely. When Dumebi returned to work after days, Mr. Folarin informed her he will be sponsoring her education. Happy with the news, Dumebi eagerly shared her excitement with her husband when she returned home. However, her joy was greeted with indifference and even disdain by Deji. He compared her to his peers, questioning her aspiration. Your mates are working as managers and earning big money while you are there wasting away. Aren't you too old to return to school? She told Dumebi. For your information, your so-called boss called to ask for my permission, and I told him nothing good could ever come out of your life. Dumebi's heart sank as she realized her husband hated her. Determined to pursue her education, no matter the price, Dumebi continued her online education, keeping it only to herself. Mr. Folarin also made it easy for her, making a room in his house a study. Deji continued his affair with Sito and decided he was going to marry her legally and send Dumebi out of his house. He decided he was going to employ a nanny to care for his children. Dumebi returned from work one day when she saw her husband's car parked in the house. She was surprised he had returned from work earlier than usual. Little did she know what was about to unfold. Deji introduced his fiancé to Dumebi. Dumebi looked at Tito. She felt sad and belittled, but there was nothing she could do. She was made to prepare dinner for them. After dinner, they both entered the master's bedroom, laughing, while Dumebi slept on the couch in the living room. The following morning, Deji threw her things out of the house. The husband she had loved and sacrificed her youth for now saw her as nothing but a liability and believed nothing good could ever come out of her life. She felt betrayed and she wept helplessly. Dumebi remained by the gate till nightfall and fell asleep on the cold, hard ground, depressed by the fact that she had nowhere to go. She wished someone could come and help her beg Deji. The following morning, Dumebi mustered up all her remaining strength to carry herself to work in Mr. Folarin's house. Deji had left strict orders at the gate never to allow Dumebi in. She took her luggage and left it at Mr. Folarin's gate. Hours later, Mr. Folarin returned from work, puzzled to see multiple bags and suitcases by his gate. It didn't take long for him to discard the thought and carry on with his day, thinking that it must belong to one of his staff. Dumebi, on the other hand, overwhelmed by the surge of emotions bearing her, broke down as she was cleaning, not knowing her boss had returned from work earlier than usual that day, causing him to overhear her tears of sorrow and grief. Concerned, Mr. Flannery questioned why she was crying and if she was okay. Dumebi wasn't exactly keen on revealing what had taken course in the space of the past 2 days. Eventually, she opened up and explained to him what had happened. Mr. Flannery moved, asked if he could call Deji to appeal to him. Dumebi was very happy and hopeful. But when Deji answered the call, he insulted not just Dumebi, but Mr. Flannery, calling Dumebi names, and he asked Mr. Flannery to marry her as was getting married legally to his love of his life. He said he had divorced Dumebi legally long ago and she had signed the papers unaware. Dumebi asked, "How? When did I sign?" He laughed wickedly and responded, "Because you are an illiterate. You are naive and stupid." Dumebi broke down in tears. She felt as if her world had come to an end. She had no friends and no roof over her head. Mr. Flannery consoled her and offered her a room in the guest house. She was very grateful. After some days, Mr. Flannery called and asked her if he could come in and employ a lawyer to help her fight for the custody of her children. Dumebi was very happy. When Deji got the court summon, he was surprised as he didn't even expect Dumebi to have the effrontery to fight for custody. He went to court proudly and told the court his wife was mentally unstable and unfit to care for the children. Dumebi's lawyers called the 2 doctors who had treated the defendants on 2 different occasions, and how Deji broke the arm of his son in anger. The female judge was very angry and fined Deji heavily for damages, which he said he was to pay or face 7-year jail term for domestic violence and child assault. The custody of the children was given to Dumebi, and Deji was mandated to pay the upkeep for the children every month and also rent a house for them. Dumebi was very grateful to Mr. Flannery and she started living in her own house with her children. She felt secured and comfortable. She continued working for Mr. Flannery and also continued her studies. A few years later, Dumebi completed her studies and Mr. Flannery employed her in one of his companies as his personal assistant. She was also given an official car. Dumebi was speechless and she prayed for Mr. Flannery. She thanked him for giving her wings to fly and making her believe in herself and giving her life a meaning. Flannery started developing feelings for Dumebi and he made his intentions known to her. Dumebi was happy, but she asked for time to discover herself and be independent. Flannery promised to give her all the time she needed to make up her mind. Dumebi was out jogging one morning when she saw an old couple walking hand in hand. The husband smiled at her and told her she looked like his wife when she was much younger. They introduced themselves as one of her neighbors and she was invited for lunch days later. When she went for lunch, they got talking. There she discovered it was Miss Sonny's second marriage. She had been married earlier to a man who had mistreated her seriously and burnt her certificates and her face because he felt she was too proud, and how the society had judged her and called her names that she couldn't keep her own. They felt she was supposed to forgive and forget and move on with her marriage. She narrated her story to Dumebi, how she gave up on love and developed a phobia for relationships. Even when she met her husband, Miss Sani said she almost lost him too, till her mother told her she couldn't use the action of one man to judge all men and not to bleed on those who didn't hurt her. Dumebi told her story also, and both women cried and laughed. They shared a secret bond. One day, Dumebi was at the airport waiting to catch a flight with Flannery when she saw Deji. He was surprised to see her there and looked confused. They greeted each other, and he said he was going on a vacation. Dumebi explained that she was also going on a business trip with Folani. He looked at Dumebi and thought, one man's food was another man's poison. Who could have thought Dumebi could be this beautiful? Their flight was announced and they went into business class. She saw the look of surprise on Diji's face, even though he tried to hide it. He sat waiting for his own flight. She smiled and was more grateful to Folani. When Dumebi finally accepted Folani's proposal, it was with eyes wide open. She had learned to value herself, to trust her judgment, and to recognize genuine love and respect. Folani was happy and promised to love and respect her all the days of his life. Their wedding day was a celebration of not just their union, but of Dumebi's incredible journey from victim to survival, and a woman fully in control of her own destiny. As Dumebi looked at the gathered friends and family, and her children beaming with pride, she silently thanked every obstacle that led her to this moment. She had not just survived, she had blossomed into a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate version of herself. The future stretched out before her, full of promise, hope, love, prosperity, and possibility. As she sat down one day with her husband while the chef made dinner, Dumebi smiled and remembered that past life. She was indeed grateful to Folani, who had treated her like a queen. She simply smiled and hugged her husband. Thank you. Do well to like and subscribe to our channel. Bye.